It's tax time. Are you filing another extension this year? If you are not organized, chances are your books are a mess and you need to spend hours getting everything together for your accountant. My name is Chatto and I've been a landlord for over 25 years, and I can guarantee you that all of that disorganization will cost you time, effort, and energy, all that can be better spent. And who knows many write-offs you may have missed. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's have a quick chat with Chatto about property management organization. That's right. I'm going to give you six systems that you need to put in place and stay on top of in your rental business. So let's jump into it. First thing is property information. Number one is property information. Where do you have a copy of your deed? Where do you have photos of the property? Where do you have any information on open and closed permits? Where do you have your insurance information? Where do you have your rental registration for your landlord license? Where do you keep your property information? So that's the first thing you need to have a system around. Now, if you have a software where it keeps that all together, great. You put it all in there. You're going to be married to that software for a long time because it's easier to put in than it is to get out, but it does keep it organized. Whether or not you're using a software to keep it organized or you're using Google Drive, you need to have that information readily accessible. And some of the stuff is permanent, right? Like deeds and that kind of thing. Some of it is updated all the time. Like you have a new insurance every year. You got to make sure you get that. You have new landlord registrations every year, potentially, depending on where you are. So keeping all that property information is the first thing that you need to keep in mind when keeping your business organized. The second thing is tenant records. Where do you keep all the applications? Where do you keep your screening reports? Copy of the tenant's ID, the lease, renewals, right? What about even your screening criteria? Like you need to have all of your tenant records together in one spot and easily accessible. Especially if you have a tenant that you now need to go after and you can't find their ID, you can't find their social security number, and they just stiffed you on $10,000 of back rent, and you want to go and file an action against them without that information, it's going to be really hard to do. So tenant records are the second big thing that you need to keep organized. Again, there's software to do it. If you're not using software, you need to use some type of a place to keep it all together and keep it safe. The third big thing is money. Yeah. Where are the rent payments going? Are you keeping track of rent payments? Are you keeping track of late fees? Are you keeping track of invoices from your contractors? Did you get double billed on something? We just had that today. We got 2 bills from the water company and we were ready to pay another one, but no, we're organized and we say, hey, we paid this 2 weeks ago, and they just happened to send out a duplicate bill because the first reading was estimated and the second was actual. But because we were on top of it, we caught a duplicate invoices. What about all your tax documentation? What about all your HUDs, your closing statements? Everything needs to be organized regarding money and financials. And this is also especially important if you ever get any type of situation where you get audited. Right? You need to be able to show everything that you send to your accountant is true and factual. You need to be on top of having all your stuff organized. And this is where, as we started the video, if you had all this together, you're going to be able to get it over to your accountant. Right now, it is February 13th, and we are in the process of going through each of our LLCs and getting the final check of everything done and over to the accountant, because LLC taxes are due on 3/15 as opposed to 4/15. So we're working on proactively getting all that done so we don't need to file an extension. And it's something else that's out of the way, it's handled, and it feels good. Plus, as a landlord, knowing what your cash flow is, right? Knowing what your actual numbers are, not just like, oh, it might be this or it might be that. Being on top of all this prevents tenants from getting too far behind because you're not paying attention. So the money piece is huge. I mean, it's a huge part of any business, especially a landlording business. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is organization of maintenance. How are you organizing maintenance? How are you organizing work orders? How are you organizing Before photos, after photos, documentation of what got done, what's open that needs to get done. It's great when, especially, if for some reason tenant calls the city, they come out and you can show like, hey, tenant reached out to me on this date. This is the date I sent the contractor over. This is the date it got fixed. Like, to have that documentation, especially when things go sideways, go a long way. And also to like have that organized. It's great to be able to know like, hey, we just had the heater man over at the property 2 months ago. What was going on then? Now all of a sudden we're having a problem 2 months later. Again, it's being organized. And again, there's softwares that put it all in, and it's great. And you're also married to that software, but that's huge. The other thing that you want to keep organized is anything to do with legal and compliance. Anything, again, if any inspections on your properties from the city, right? That's a compliance issue. You want to make sure that you have a record. I've had instances where I got 5 years later, I get a summons from the city that I didn't get a certificate of occupancy, and I was frustrated because I knew that I got a certificate of occupancy of that property. I remember meeting the inspector out there. I remember there was some drama with certain things that we had to get resolved. So I know we got the certificate of occupancy, but 5 years later, I wasn't organized. I could not find it, right? So what did that cost me? A day in court and a $300 fine. Right? So it just, all this organization seems like it's a little bit here, a little bit there, and it adds up to huge time savings in the end. Any notices you get from the city, any violations, maybe all your lead certificates, if that's required where you are, like just all that legal and compliance stuff needs to be organized. And lastly, and this is actually a pretty big one, and one that can get confusing, number 6, number 6 is communication. It can get very confusing when you are communicating with tenants via email, via phone call, via text, right? There's a lot of different ways to communicate, right? I've even seen landlords communicating with WhatsApp with their tenants, right? And they're getting payments. It's like all this stuff needs to be organized, and you need to have standards around communication, right? If you have, like I said in another video, I recommend we use Dialpad. All the phone calls are in Dialpad. Right, we know where they are. There's a summary that it comes up with, an AI transcription of the call, so we know what happened, right? And right after that conversation, like we have a conversation with a tenant, we document it in our software, right? So we have all of this, because if anything ever comes to pass, like, okay, we spoke to you about it on this date, we spoke to you about it that day, this is what we agreed to. Another way that we that helps with that, if I'm ever in a situation where I am on a phone call with a tenant and for some reason it's not through Dialpad, and again, star 67 is a great one. If I have to call a tenant from my personal cell and I don't want them to have my personal cell, star 67. So I do star 67, I call the tenant, I have a conversation with them. One of the things that I do is I go into our software and go into the texting feature. And again, you got to have this all organized. And even if you don't have a software, maybe you have like just a specific Google Voice that you use for texting tenants. So everything's there. But that being said, I go right back. I have a conversation with the tenant, and then I text the tenant and say, cool, we just had a conversation. We agreed to blah, blah, and blah. And, just give me a thumbs up that you agree with that. And that's especially important when you're calling a tenant to have a conversation like, hey, you're going to be, everything, you've moved out and everything left in the property we're getting rid of. Is that correct? Right? And then they reply, so you text them, you have a conversation, they say yes. But now you text them that and they reply, and you have now that in writing, in text, I guess, but in writing that they read that like they are out and everything that's left is gone, so that they can back say, oh, you threw away this or you threw away that. You have something documented. So communication, and that's really one of the more difficult pieces. It really takes a, what's the word I'm looking for? A habit. A habit needs to be created where every single time you communicate with a tenant, it goes into a central location. And what does that central location look like? It might be that you have a Google Drive with each tenant, and you copy and paste stuff over. You do a screenshot, you send it over. I don't know. Whatever works for you. But the important thing is that you document every communication with tenants. And it's not just tenants a lot of times. It's going to be, maybe it's an assistance agency. Maybe it's communications with the city, with with compliance or whatever the case may be. Having all your communications together in one spot helps tremendously. So it's not, and also like I want to just like remind you, it's not like you have to have everything perfect, especially if you're starting. You have one, you have two, three properties, whatever the case may be. You just need to get started. That's the most important thing. If you're able to get started and like you start, okay, I need to have property info, and you start collecting the property info. Okay, I need to take care of tenant records and rents. Tenant records being like applications, and like I need to keep that and the leases organized, and just start with a system and grow on it and improve it, and it will get better every single time. So that being said, hope you guys had value. Hope this video was of value. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you get organized, and hopefully you like and subscribe and comment. Any tips that you have as far as organization would be great. And again, I appreciate you checking in and enjoying another episode of Chat with Chatto. Have a good one.